Well, hello everybody. I have just the most amazing human being to interview today. Her name's Abedah Musengi, and she is a Thanadloula, an embodiment practitioner, a yogini. I suspect that she's a meditator, and I'm almost certain that she's a total nature lover as well. So we're going to be talking to her today. I'm going to just immediately say, please follow her on Instagram. You'll find the link below in the description. And we've actually never really in fact, we've never spoken. So we're about to start having a conversation, but from nowhere. We have no relationship, and we're going to explore hanging out together. So the first thing I want to do, because I work with voices and communication, I just want to ask if you wouldn't mind sharing what's going on in your body right now as you consider speaking and relating and being on the internet with me.
Sure. What's happening in the body? Nerves, always nerves. I found over time just to sense where the voice is coming out from. So I usually tend to have quite a bit of tension in the chest, behind the ears and the jaw. So just reminding myself to take nice full deep inhalations, nice soft belly, and that helps to soothe the nerves.
That's so good. So I'm pretty sure everyone who's watching this started to downregulate when you started to speak that. So I'm gonna echo that. I love what you said about feeling into where the voice is coming from, and it is something that I work with a lot with my clients, but people generally don't speak about that. In other words, we can speak entirely from our heads and be up in our heads and be really ungrounded. And so what we're going to do as we kind of co-regulate together or bring our nervous systems together is just taking the risk to slow down and not need to fill the space with all the things. So how's that physiology and energy field feeling right now?
Energetically, I'm very excited. I love the idea of being in conversation and also being in conversation with somebody, you in particular. As you said, we haven't met before. So I think it's nice. It's a great opportunity to really just be authentic. And as you've said, not trying to fill the space too much, just enjoying presence. And I think the fact that I can see you also makes a big difference. I remember doing a radio interview and sitting there like, oh my goodness, I can't see, I feel like body language is also such an important aspect of communication. So really comfortable in that.
Yeah, thank you for speaking that out. I agree with you, and I feel the same. And for those of you watching us, understand that we are literally learning to co-regulate together. Abedah and I, in this moment, we're kind of learning to feel safe with each other and the whole internet. I mean, never mind. And so we're experiencing what's going on in our body. So I can feel like tingles in my solar plexus mostly. And I'm just trying to just allowing a deepening of my relationship with my feet and legs and lower body in order to really get kind of what I would call low slung. So I'm kind of just really arriving more present in the moment so we can start the conversation about you. I've got like some serious questions about death doulaing, but I'm so interested about you and meditation and consciousness. There's a whole kind of healing and consciousness journey that it looks like is going on. Would you mind just telling a little bit about what you're up to and what's interesting you in that regard at the moment?
Sure, absolutely. In terms of meditation, I found that with the start of 2020 that my practice really started to deepen because it was like we're thrown into crisis. And I think that's when you really start to understand what tools do I have available to me to be present and not so much attached to the more positive aspects of our lives. I think I realized how easy it was for me to maintain a mindfulness practice when everything was in flow, when everything felt good. So to really break down, what does it mean to be mindful? And it's a combination of research, developing my own practice. And there were three things that really stuck out for me in terms of mindfulness, which is to learn how to observe. So observing the physical body, the emotional body, learning how to describe, because it's all well and good that we're observing, but can I really describe in detail, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? And in that process of labeling things, also trying to do that in a non-judgmental way, more of a matter-of-fact kind of way, where it's like, okay, I'm not feeling good. What can I do about this? And then shifting from the element of describing into then participating. So it's like, I'm not being judgmental. Yes, I have discernment, but I'm going to participate in this despite it being difficult. So I really found that those three elements help me to be more mindful and keep that up.
Awesome. And did you find yourself meditating more or less during lockdown? Did it bring you inward? What happened with all of the staying inside?
I feel like it was an insane time of isolation. There was a period where I was just feeling like, wow, I'm so alone. But I think what creates a big shift when it comes to mindfulness is to not limit the environment that you practice mindfulness in. So I find when I go into retreat spaces, I'm like, whoa, I'm really in this. I'm so mindful. I'm a meditator and all these other labels. But as soon as you come out of that perfect container that allows for mindfulness, it tends to dwindle. So I try to make mindful moments in everything, whether it's walking or being in conversation or being with my partner, being in my home. And I found that I can actually practice mindfulness at any moment. It's always available to me.
Beautiful. Yeah. So it's a lived practice in real life rather than just, I get to be really namaste in a retreat, and then when I get back into my real life, I fall to pieces and become super unconscious. Okay. So here's a question. Do you find, because you're a meditator, which involves kind of being mindful, but then you're also an embodiment person. Are you more a head, heart, body person? How do you work? How does your operating system work?
I like that. My operating system, when I was younger, I felt like I had to be very intellectual when it came to explaining processes that I was feeling. And I wasn't a wordy person. I'd come into a room and I sit and I'd observe people and be like, okay, my presence is enough. But I feel like on a societal level, we do value the more intellectual side. So I found that it's been a very interesting journey to learn, how can I be intellectual in terms of communicating and using language effectively? And how can I also then feel emotion? How can I connect that with my body? Because they're inseparable. It's always they're always interfacing with each other, but also finding that there is value in the experience of the body, which goes, I feel like it's almost, you can't explain it in words sometimes, what's happening in your body. So just to express through body language, not feeling trapped by self-conscious, but by feeling self-conscious.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So you became interested in death, and you've become, and you're communicating a lot as a Thanadloula, a death doula. Can you tell or just share with everyone a little journey about the power of this work and what's led you to it, and what kind of effects it's having on the people around you and clients and so on? Tell me a little bit about it.
Absolutely. To start from the beginning, I found myself as a young woman, I was working a corporate job, and I found that the main element that was missing from my day-to-day life was being in service. So being in service to the wider community. I could sense there was interconnectedness between myself as an individual and the environments that I was operating in, but I still had this profound sense of dissatisfaction in working my corporate job. So started making the shifts to really make my passion, which is embodiment practices and social service, to make that my living, my everyday, to not have the difference between work and what I do. So I had found, a friend of mine actually had introduced me to Going with Grace, which is the school that I did my training with. And I remember seeing this Refinery 29 interview with a Lua author, where she was explaining what she does for a living, which is I plan people's death for a living. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, that is it. That is it. I need to be involved in this kind of social service. And then 2020 came around, and as we've mentioned, it was a time of deep isolation, and it also highlighted my unconscious fear of dying. I didn't really realize the magnitude of how unconscious I was about having a relationship with death and dying until 2020 came around, where I was like, oh my gosh, what if I die? What if my family dies? And I didn't have a practical way to think about these thoughts in a way that was healthy and constructive. So when the scholarship program opened up for the end of life training program, when I managed to wrestle self-doubt, that's when I applied. It's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to apply to be a death doula. And it was just absolutely transformational. There are so many things that I learned about bringing mindfulness to death. And just the thought that you could have a relationship with death and dying was a completely new concept to me. And it wasn't necessarily received very warmly at first, because I feel like when you bring up death, some people are very conscious of their relationship to death and dying, and some people aren't conscious of it. So it can bring about a lot of discomfort. So I'm always really, really excited when someone says, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about death and dying. So yeah, it's been absolutely incredible. And I feel like it speaks to transformation on a personal level, an environmental level, and also on a social level. I think another thing that I'd love people to know, particularly about death doula care and the scope of care, is to just shift the perception that death doulas are only there at the time of death, that we can be in service to people even prior to people dying. So mainly to initiate these conversations, whether it's with your family or people that you live with, to just really open ourselves up to the conversation about death and dying in a practical sense. So in terms of like advanced planning and really thinking about it and forming a relationship with death and dying. Because I feel like we wait till it's too late to have the conversation. And the experience itself of losing someone is really traumatic. So as much as we don't want to think about like the admin related things towards death and dying, that is really such an important thing to think about it in a constructive and healthy way, and to reach out and to get the support, whatever questions you may have, that it is worth bringing up.
That totally makes sense. Thank you. I'm going to, I'd love to put that in. It totally makes sense. Yeah, just my parents are in their late 70s and early 80s, and yeah, it just feels like we haven't really had those conversations, and it just feels like it would be so healthy to. In so many spiritual traditions, there's this phrase to die before you die. So it's, in other words, to really appreciate what we have while we do, but also plan for it, feel into the practical stuff. So I suppose it brings more life to life in a way.
Absolutely. And I feel the idea when we question things like, what if I had just spoken about it, or what if I had acknowledged it? Because in the same way that we celebrate birth, when somebody is pregnant, like, wow, so excited for you bringing life into the world. And I think a really painful thing about death denial is that somebody can be dying and we don't acknowledge that. We don't look into their legacy. What do they want to share? What was meaningful about their life? I think the value of the oral tradition of exchanging information between people. It's almost like elders are libraries of information and wisdom. And create these spaces to talk about people coming towards the end of the life. It's like we are extracting those jewels of wisdom and keeping it in our own lives, even when they've passed on.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Like just having those conversations rather than this kind of just almost a disconnection between generations, and rather sewing together and weaving together our lineage and honoring it, and especially honoring our parents as they move towards the end of their lives. So tell me about you and nature.
Me and nature. It's interesting when I hear that statement. It's like, tell me about you and you.
Totally. Okay, I've got another way to phrase this. Tell me about you and waterfalls.
I feel I have started to really deepen my relationship with nature. I had listened to this very interesting Ram Dass podcast where he speaks about the idea of co-meditating with things in your environment. And I felt that is so incredible. It almost takes away the mundane quality of mindfulness where we think, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to go inward and I'm focusing. It's actually bringing that sense of wakefulness. What am I looking at? What am I experiencing? So I feel like I'm always in the state of co-meditating. Particularly, I'm always down to co-meditate with water. I feel like it's such an incredible element. It's like that warm embrace. I don't know. I feel like with the pandemic, I have become more conscious about touch and obviously proximity with people. So I've always found that particularly engaging with the element of water is that much needed embrace.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So if you follow Abedah on Instagram, you will find that she spends a lot of time in waterfalls and just out in nature, these beautiful videos. So what might be fun in this moment, I don't know how you feel about this, I'm just going to spring this on you and you can just say yay or nay, is how would you feel about just for 1 minute humming with me? Humming, co-meditating together.
Sure.
How would you feel about starting the note and then I'll join you?
Okay, let's see. Where can I feel this note? Where do I feel this note?
I think that's our minute. Thanks for playing along. How did that feel?
So interesting. I feel I've always been curious about sitting in circle with people and singing and just feeling that out. I used to attend sound journeys with a friend of mine, Paul Boyter, and he would experiment with sound like that. And I feel like it does take some time to just ease into to finding that synchronicity and also shifting from here in the head and the jaw tensing and the ears, not feeling in sync. And it's beautiful. It's a wonderful experience.
Thank you so much for playing along with it. I just want to say to everyone, please follow the link in the description to Abedah's website, and you'll see into her link tree, and you'll find all of the things. I'm going to repeat that actually. So to everyone out there, please have a look at the link below to Abedah's website, and you can find out all about her work, including her work as a death doula. Yeah, I'm totally intrigued too.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. It's been so nice to be in conversation with you, and thank you for the platform to speak. I enjoy your work so much, and it's also been so helpful for me in liberating my own speaking voice as someone who avoids that.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be of service, as you know. Yeah. Okay, well, wonderful to meet you at last, and I'll be in touch soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Take care, Abedah. Bye.
You too.